How many games will the Cleveland Browns win in 2024? What's going on, Dog Pound? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL record prediction video. This time, your Cleveland Browns. I'm going to give you a schedule preview, going game by game, picking each one of their matchups, giving you my opinion on the toughest games, the easiest games, and everything in between. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button. Let me know in the comments how many games you think the Browns will win in 2024. And subscribe for more NFL record predictions, all 32 teams, including the AFC North, just like this. Let's take a look at the schedule, man, for the Cleveland Brownies. It all begins with the Dallas Cowboys, Tom Brady, the GOAT, on the call. Myles Garrett versus Micah Parsons. A good game, in my opinion. I think that Dallas was the better team last year, but are they the better team this year? And considering the game is in Cleveland, of all places, that gives the Browns an advantage. And I think the Browns will win this game. As long as Deshaun Watson does not have a horrible game, which is why I want to say this, guys. I want to say this to you, Browns fans. Your team is stacked. Your team is very talented. I like your defense a lot. I like your offensive line a lot. I like a lot of aspects of your team. But there's two things that really annoy me about your team. Deshaun Watson is not a good player. No matter what you say about his off the field, he is not a good football player right now. So that really makes them a difficult projection. And two, losing their offensive line coach was one of the most underrated losses of the season. Now, that being said, the Cowboys had a lot of losses on their offensive line. The Browns are at home. They've got one of the best pass rushes in football. They've got a really good cornerback group that can match up with the Cowboys receivers. This could be a really frustrating game for Dak Prescott. And the Browns can also run the ball against a, let's be fair, pretty soft Cowboys defense. A lot of talent, but pretty soft. The Browns match up well with the Cowboys. I think they win that game. Week 2. Jacksonville. This game's tricky. I almost want to come back to this game because I think this is very well matched, very even. Trevor Lawrence, the better quarterback. Jacksonville's offensive line is okay. It's not great. They do have good weapons. Their defensive line is pretty good. Their defense is a little underrated. That's a tough game. A really tough game. I'm going to come back to that one. I think they'll beat the Giants at home. Self-explanatory. Giants' offensive line is terrible. Still, maybe a little bit better, but still not good. Daniel Jones not good under pressure. Browns' defense wins that game. Plus, I think this could be a Deshaun Watson good game here with, as long as they can protect. Because the Giants do have a good front seven. Week 4, they play the Raiders. I actually think this is a sneaky loss. I don't really know why. I think Vegas is subtly a pretty tough place to play. I think that you never know with a Gardner Minshew type. He can always have a good game every once in a while. The Raiders do have good weapons that can actually get open, like Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers. O-line's pretty good. They can run the ball a bit. Their D-line is pretty talented. I think they can stop the Browns' running game. So I think this is just like a matchup thing. The Raiders are also, again, like a pretty deceptive home field. Week 5, I think they'll beat the Commanders. I don't think the Commanders are very good this year. They've got a lot of young, a lot of new. Week 6, the Eagles in Philly. This is a Schwartz revenge game, potentially. I like how the Browns potentially match up with the Eagles. On defense, I'm not sure about their offense. It kind of depends on what Deshaun Watson we get. Because I could see the Browns having success on offense against the Eagles. Because they have a good offensive line. They should be able to block the Eagles, which is first and foremost. David Njoku at tight end. Nick Chubb running the ball. Jerry Jeudy in the middle of the field. Amari Cooper. It really depends on Deshaun Watson. That's a tough game. I'm going to come back to that. I think they beat the Bengals, which in fact is going to be the Bengals' first loss of the season in week 7. Bengals have a really easy start to the season. I think the Bengals will be very good, but the Browns play the Bengals very well. So I'm going to have them winning that game, especially in Cleveland. They just tend to beat Joe Burrow. Week 8, I have them going back-to-back. Maybe. Should I have them going back-to-back? Let's see. Yeah, let's have them going back-to-back wins against the division, 2 back-to-back huge wins. But I'm going to have them splitting with both the Ravens and the Bengals. First, the Bengals game's on Thursday night in Cincy. Talk about an advantage for the Bengals there. I think the Bengals will get better as the season goes, though, as they always do. And so will the Ravens, as they typically always do. I would say that Cleveland, other than it just being rivalry games, I think the Browns' D-line will win them one game against those teams. That's kind of what I would say. I think they match up better against the Bengals from an offensive standpoint because of their running game against Cincinnati. I think that can give the Bengals defense some issues. But against the Ravens, they truly need to win it on defense, along with, some smoke and mirrors offensively. Deshaun needs to play a clean game, scramble, stay out of, tough situations, run the ball a bit. And then Amari Cooper's got to win some plays down the field. They've got to screen him. It's more about, in my opinion, damn ads. I think the Bengals are an easier game for the Browns. But it's more about the division rivalry, the familiarity, all that stuff. Why they split. Week 9, they play the Chargers. I think they'll beat the Chargers. I like how they match up with the Chargers. Chargers have been weak against the run in recent years. That should change a little bit with the coaching change, but I think a lot of it is personnel. The Chargers linebackers are not very good. The Chargers defensive line is not very good against the run. The Chargers don't have great weapons, and their offensive line is better. But if they're going to be a run-heavy, play-action type of team, I don't see how that works against Cleveland. Cleveland's just too good in the secondary. They can match up man-to-man with the Chargers, suffocate them. That's a tough matchup, especially in Cleveland for an LA team. I think that after the bye week, they've got a tough one against the Saints that I'm going to keep to the side for now. I think they beat the Steelers on Thursday at home. I think they lose to the Steelers in Pittsburgh. I think they beat the Broncos on Monday night. Broncos are one of the worst teams in football, although that is in Denver, so that could be a sneaky tough game in between a couple games. But here's the thing, right? So they have a bye, then they play the Saints. They have a Thursday nighter, so they've got a 10-day rest period playing the Steelers. So that's advantageous for Cleveland. The game's also in Cleveland. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, pretty even at quarterback. The rest of the rosters, I would say Cleveland's is better. But I would also say that the Steelers might have better coaching. But those two teams, again, just tend to split just with the rivalry and the AFC North. I would also say that, you look at a short week, the time after that, right? So you play Denver on Monday night. You've got a long rest to prepare for Denver, a pretty easy matchup on the road, although you have to go to a kind of a tricky stadium and environment. Then week 14, you've got a short week to play the Steelers after a Monday, right? So that's where that could potentially be the loss. Then week 15, you play the Chiefs. So that's a really tough stretch. I think they're probably going to lose to the Chiefs. I think the Browns will match up poorly with the Chiefs. Their defense, I think, can give them a tough game. I'm just worried about how the Browns score on the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs' defense is really, really solid and opportunistic. And I think Spags could give Deshaun a lot of issues in that game. So while the Browns' defense might hold them in the game, eventually Patrick Mahomes will make some plays. And at this point in the season, this is where the Chiefs tend to kind of ramp it up. So that's going to be a tough game. Week 17, I think they beat the Dolphins at home. I think that's a bad matchup for the Dolphins. The Dolphins have a suspect offensive line and a suspect defensive line, not the game you want to play against Cleveland. Also, in Cleveland, it could be bad weather, and that is not the type of game Miami fares well in. So that should be advantageous for Cleveland. So right now I have them with 9 wins, which sounds pretty good so far. So now we've got to decide on some 50-50 games, which would be the Saints, the Jags, and the Eagles. Oh man, it's funny. You got Doug Peterson's team and then the Eagles. I think, let's say they lose to the Jags. I think part of the Cleveland thing early in the year is going to be Deshaun Watson, again, getting used to the speed of the NFL and like getting used to playing again. Again, like last year, he missed a bunch of the late season, right? Joe Flacco had to play. So I think that's part of it. So I think they'll lose to Jacksonville there. That's a tough place to play in September when it's that warm, that humid, all that stuff. And then I think they're going to beat the Eagles. It's a tricky one, but let's call it a Jim Schwartz revenge game. So their defense really wins them that game. And then against the Saints, I'm going to say that's tough. In New Orleans, tough place to play. I'm going to say New Orleans wins. The reason is New Orleans has been good against the run for a number of years. Dennis Allen's a good defensive coach. Derek Carr has games where he plays really well. It is in New Orleans. Dome. Tough place to play. Saints are a solid squad. I mean, they've got playmakers. Yeah, I'm going to go Saints there. All right, so that's what I got. I got 10-7. I think that's solid. I think they won 11 games last year, I think. So, they could win 11 again, but this is a tough schedule for sure. You've got to play, look, you play the AFC North, you play the Chiefs, you play the Dolphins, you play the Eagles, you play Jacksonville, you play New Orleans in New Orleans, you play Dallas. So it's a tough schedule. I also think that the quarterback play being up and down suspect is going to be dicey. I think the defense will regress subtly, but I think there will be games where they dominate. I think the offense hopefully is healthier as a cohesive whole, including the offensive line, but it will be a bit up and down. So the Browns are a tough team because I think Cincinnati's going to be better and healthier. I think the Ravens are going to be a little worse, but still really good. And the Steelers will be a little bit better, but their record won't really reflect it. And it's kind of like Cleveland, where like you can't always go on the record. Like the record isn't really an indication of how good the team actually is. Because it depends on who you're playing that week, who's injured, what quarterback's playing, like who did you catch at the right time. Like the Browns beating the Niners last year, for example. Like games like that where maybe if that was played a different week, that wouldn't have happened. Things like that, right? So Cleveland should be about the same record as last year. But I think if they make the playoffs this year, they'll be a more dangerous team, I would say. And I have them right in that wild card conversation. Let me know what you guys think. Gronk spiked the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It's Mitch of the BLV. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace, guys.